Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious?
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
A very good evening. This is Patrick Christys tonight. What's the target on small boat crossings?
My target is to bring it down to zero. I mean, I'm completely committed, and actually...
In 2024.
Here's James Cleverley trying to hit that target. 35,000 are expected this year, but what you haven't been told is how much poorer mass immigration is making you. Sick of the militant junior doctors' strikes?
Are you comfortable adding to that, though, the death toll? That's what's political, isn't it? That's what you're talking about. You see, it's got political quite quickly there.
No.
General election, change of government, Labour government. Are you personally affected by the issue with doctors' pay, then?
I confronted their union leader. Plus, are you about to be mugged at knife point for your jacket? Violent thugs are targeting a specific type of coat. Lee Anderson reacts to that and Reform UK shaking up politics and... We are going to go do lally at the Ali Pally, where 16-year-old kebab-loving Luke Littler could become a darts world champion. This lad's excited.
He's just a really good dart player. He's only 16. He just hits his first time at the Ali Pally, so I think he's going to win because Luke Humphries is an absolute rat.
And I'm joined by Christine Hamilton, Adam Brooks and Matthew Larzer. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Tonight, I'm going to bust the myth that our lives are being enriched by mass immigration with devastating facts. And I want to hear from you, too, about the stories that you think we should be covering in your local area. If there's something happening near you that needs us to focus in on it, email me, storiesforpatrick@gbnews.com. We will look into it. Why? Because we've got your back, and we are back after the news.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB Newsroom. Another yellow weather warning for heavy rain is on its way for tomorrow after Storm Henk battered parts of the UK last night. The West Midlands Ambulance Service is warning people to take extra care after several people had to be rescued from cars caught in floodwaters. Parts of Birmingham, Leicester and Northampton are already flooded. Meanwhile, a 50-year-old man was killed when a tree fell on his car while driving in Gloucestershire. And now there's more rain on the way, with people warned to expect more travel disruption tomorrow. Nottingham hospitals have declared a critical incident, urging patients not to attend hospital unless it's an emergency. It's due to extreme pressure on services, they say, and the hospitals there in A&E. It comes as a number of hospitals have called on striking doctors to return to work due to patient safety concerns. 6 days of industrial action began this morning after talks between the government and the BMA union broke down. Junior doctors want a 35% pay rise, which they say would restore their real earnings to levels seen in 2008. The government says that's unaffordable, but insists the door remains open for further negotiations. A 15-year-old boy has been arrested on suspicion of murder following a stabbing in North London on New Year's Eve. 16-year-old Harry Pittman died following what police say was an altercation as crowds gathered on Primrose Hill to watch the fireworks. Posting on social media, his sister described him as a good boy with a heart of gold and said he wasn't part of any gang and wouldn't have been involved in violence. There have been 2 explosions at a memorial ceremony in Iran, killing more than 100 people. Iranian state TV showed footage of crowds running as ambulances rushed to the scene. Officials described it as a terrorist attack as people gathered to commemorate the death of a senior commander 4 years ago. So far, no one has claimed responsibility for the attack. Eurostar has been given a warning by the advertising watchdog after promoting special fares that were available to very few people. The train company invited customers to soak up every second of summer with a European getaway for just £39. But the Advertising Standards Authority found only a very small portion of seats available at the price, describing the promotion as misleading. Eurostar says it takes complaints seriously and will ensure it doesn't happen again. And Luke Littler is making history tonight as the youngest player to compete in the final of the World Darts Championship. At just 16, he beat Rob Cross 6-2 in the semi-final last night at Alexandra Palace. Now he's taking on the new world #1, Luke Humphries, in the final. This is GB News on TV, online, DAB+ radio and on your smart speaker.
Loads on tonight. We start with this. Leaked Border Force documents reveal that Channel migrant crossings are set to hit 35,000 this year. Well, yesterday, James Cleverly said this.
My target is to bring it down to 0. I mean, I'm completely committed, and actually...
In 2024?
That's my target. My target is to reduce it to 0, to stop the boats, and I'm unambiguous about that.
Yeah, we're going live now to James Cleverly trying to hit that target there. But this is a problem entirely born out of Sunak and Cleverly's own personal weakness. They know that the only way to stop the boats is to have a deterrent. That deterrent needs to be something like a full-throttle Rwanda plan, and that plan can only happen outside the ECHR. Suella Braverman and Robert Jenrick wanted out. Suella was sacked and Jenrick resigned on principle because Sunak wouldn't do what was necessary. I am convinced that this country is now suffering and will suffer for years to come because Rishi Sunak and James Cleverly aren't up for the fight when it comes to the ECHR because they know they won't be in power long and don't want to be remembered as the people who tried to get us out of the ECHR. That is a dereliction of duty. That puts personal gain over national interest. Now, yesterday, I revealed on this show that an impeccable source told me that the vast majority of Channel migrants do not speak a word of English and will need to be on benefits and in social housing for the foreseeable future. This comes as some devastating information emerges from Europe, and you may well have missed this. So, showing the impact of legal immigration on the welfare state. In the Netherlands, the cost to the taxpayer of non-Western immigration amounts to 17 billion euros, and the annual net benefits of Western immigration total 1 billion euros. So you can do the maths for yourselves there. If immigration continues at 2015 to 19 levels, the annual budget burden will hit 50 billion euros. The Dutch welfare state will crumble. Let's go to Denmark now. The Danish Finance Ministry concludes that non-Western immigrants are most likely to remain lifelong recipients of public finances compared to Western immigrants or native Danes. In Germany, about 45% of those who receive unemployment benefits are not German, costing the taxpayers a cool 20 billion euros per year. Austria has almost 60% of unemployment benefits going to people from a migrant background. Can you imagine the stats for Britain? There was a report published in April which showed unemployment by ethnic background, which is, of course, not the same as recent migrant employment data, OK? Given that we've just had the latest round of immigration figures, those numbers do not yet exist. But what it did show was this in the UK. 3.1% of people from a white ethnic background were unemployed, compared to 11.3% of people from a mixed/multiple ethnic background and 8.7% of people from a Pakistani ethnic background. We are also not better off per capita. So we have to have a serious conversation now about how enriched our lives actually are here in Britain and in Europe as a result of mass legal and illegal immigration. But let's get the thoughts of my panel, our author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton. We've got businessman and activist Adam Brooks and former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larzer. Christine, has the very notion that we are enriched by immigration, both legal and to an extent illegal, just been burst?
Well, I jolly well hope so. And the question, do we need to stop the boats? Of course we do. Do we want to stop the boats? Yes. Does the Prime Minister want to stop the boats? Yes, for his own electoral advantage. We all want to lose weight. We want to do more exercise. We want to give up alcohol. Wanting to do something and actually doing it are two completely different things. They've had 13 years to get a grip on this. And no, it's a complete nonsense. I mean, £18 million per day immigration costs us. £18 million per day. We need a new home, that includes a flat, every 5 minutes to house our expanding population. No, people just say, oh, yes, but look at all the immigrants who look after you if you're in hospital, etc. Yes, of course, and they're wonderful people. But on balance, immigration is costing this country.
And, Adam, these are the figures that are coming outside of Europe right now. And there used to be the argument that if we didn't have mass immigration, then we would be poorer. I don't think that argument exists anymore.
Look, there's this lefty lie that they like to put on social media that we are importing scientists and, academics on these dinghies, when the truth is what you said, most of them cannot speak English. Most of them will not end up working. And the message that's been sent this week by Rishi Sunak and James Cleverly and this government, 112,000 have cleared the backlog. Basically, even the ones that they haven't given asylum to will end up staying here. We will not deport any. No. So what happens? How many are missing? Where have they come from? What are their motives for being here? Have their backgrounds been checked? No. This is a national emergency.
OK. Matthew, has your life been enriched by mass immigration?
Well, I think that the country as a whole has been enriched by immigration, and so has my life. But enriched by immigration doesn't mean that you want to have an open borders policy or that you don't believe that immigration should be managed and controlled. And at the moment, it's too high, which is what I believe.
Well, it's also, and never mind just the numbers, it's been an incredibly divisive in certain parts of this country. We've got some of our big cities where you've got completely different populations living side by side, street by street, and they are living completely different lives. Now, that, I don't think, enriches lives at all.
When you look at some of the unemployment figures that we can see there of the people unemployed in this country, it says anyway that around just over 3% of them, 3.1%, were from a white ethnic background. They're unemployed compared to 11.3% of people from a mixed/multiple ethnic background. And not all of those people are, of course, immigrants. Some of those people will have been born here, etc. But I think it does raise serious questions, doesn't it, about how productive our immigration system actually is for us. I mean, how many of those people are paying tax? We know that people coming across on small boats are almost never going to be a net economic benefit to us, for example.
Look, I don't care the colour of anyone's skin that wants to come to this country, but they must come here and they must want to live side by side and have input and contribute to this country. Doesn't matter what colour they are. There will be races that scream, this, that. I'm not interested in that. But these people are not bringing anything to this country. At the moment, It's a worry. We do not know who they are or what they've done in the past.
And GDP per capita has fallen since 2008.
That is the big one.
That's the big one. GDP has fallen, which
when you dig down into the figures, one of the big issues is immigrants from outside the EU versus immigrants from inside the EU. It's not going to be popular with everybody, but basically it looks like people from within the EU are net contributors, and people from outside the EU are arguably there is a cost to the country. So in fact, this is one of the unintended consequences of Brexit, that it's actually made it more expensive and it's made immigration more of an issue.
Look, let's remember, most of the MPs in the elite class are not affected by these people in one iota. I've been to a local town near me and sat in the council offices, and these migrants have come in and shouting at the staff, demanding more food. Yet they're in a hotel being fed 3 times a day. The state is just draining money on these people. We should turn them back. We should have a deterrent, and we should put the message to France and all these camps that you're not going to get anything when you get here. That's the only way it stops, because they know once they're here, they're never being deported.
England is the most densely populated country in Europe. We've got 249 people per square kilometre. France has 116. We are incredibly crowded. We can't take any more people. When I was growing up, the population of this country, the UK, was about 50 million. I'm that old. Now it's 67 million. This cannot go on. It really can't. And if we don't get out of the ECHR, that's the key. Stop the boats, yes, but we should
Matthew?
be able to send people to Rwanda.
Yeah, look,
stopping
I think we're all agreed that the system at the moment is a complete mess. The backlog is absolutely ridiculous, and the Tories have been found out lying this week, claiming that the backlog's been sorted. What we need is a proper managed system, and the chaos has got to stop.
Should they have deported the 30,000 that weren't stamped asylum?
I think they shouldn't.
I would deport them. Would you deport them?
I think I would. The 30,000 who they basically lost the files for, effectively.
Yeah, or failed their
who weren't approved.
If you're not approved for an asylum claim, then you should go home.
This is part of the problem, though, and this
should be positive approval or out.
But this is part of the problem, OK? Because clearly, under our current legal system, it is incredibly difficult to actually get anybody out, and the only way you can really do that is becoming increasingly obvious is either with a proper deterrent in a third country, a safe third country, or by leaving the ECHR. And the allegation against Rishi Sunak at the moment from a source that I was speaking to yesterday is quite straightforward, which is that he knows that's true, but because he knows he's only potentially got a few months left in office, he doesn't want his legacy to be the person who took radical action.
Because he's more interested in his own future.
Because he's more interested in his own future, and I think that is a scandal if that's true, Adam.
Look, I think this message that they've sent this week by clearing this backlogs the way they have, they're saying about 35,000 this year. I'm going to want to put it on record, and we check at the end of the year. I believe it's going to be more like 50,000, because that message has now been sent. You will not be deported.
Christine, no welfare state can deal with 17 billion euros a year. The revelation has come out from a University of Amsterdam study that was published as well in Unheard. They did fantastic work at Unheard revealing this and bringing it to the British audience. 17 billion euros is the cost of to the taxpayer of non-Western immigration in the Netherlands. I mean, that is staggering.
It's absolutely staggering. And to talk about Rishi Sunak's legacy, yes, it won't be long before he's going to have a legacy. Getting out of the ECHR ought to be a magnificent achievement for Rishi Sunak. It ought to be a goal that he wants to leave as his legacy. Those things were set up after the war, not for us. We know how to police ourselves. We know how to give human rights, etc. That was for other countries. We no longer, they have no part in our lives.
Final word on this, Matthew.
Yeah, I don't think we need to leave the ECHR, but we need a proper and managed migration policy, and we need the absolute farce at the moment of the Tories saying one thing and doing the complete opposite.
What about if the ECHR don't agree with Labour's policies?
Why should unelected foreign judges have any say what goes on?
Well, actually, basically, they were mostly decided here because the Supreme Court effective employs it.
Yeah, but
hang on, because we pull sovereignty when we need to. And we stand by international rules.
Do we not need to when it comes to border control? Because we're clearly too afraid of what they're going to say.
I don't think it's the ECHR that's the problem. It's the total incompetence of this government that's the problem.
This is a war on our borders, and we need to be on a war footing. End of. People have had enough.
I think there are good people in government. I think there were good people in government and around government who really wanted to do something about this. They could see what needed to be done, and they were edged out or were gone. And unfortunately,
shouldn't just allow these people to walk up the beaches and then look after them for the rest of their lives.
We've got to stop the boats. I agree.
Not turn the boats round. Obviously, take them and put them on other seaworthy boats and send them back.
All right, OK. Look, I want to hear from you on this, but still to come, no nonsense. Lee Anderson gets stuck right into a spiralling crime wave involving street robberies of high-end coats, OK? Stay tuned to find out exactly which jacket. You could be wearing one of these jackets right now. They can cost around 1,700 quid a pop. Are you going to be a target for a violent gang? He will also react to the campaign launches of both Reform UK and the Lib Dems and failing NHS fat cats who pocket obscene salaries. But first, in the head-to-head. After Chief Race Baiter Dr. Shola condemns the Holocaust Memorial Museum as an embarrassment to humanity, are woke role models like Shola simply frothing hypocrites? Joanna Jarju and Toby Young get feisty on that, and that's next. But before that, though, it is, of course, the final week of our great British giveaway. Your chance to win the latest iPhone, a shopping spree, 10 grand in cold, hard cash. Make sure you don't miss out. Lines close on Friday. Here's how you can win.
It's the final week to see how you could be the winner of the Great British Giveaway. Your chance to grab 3 amazing prizes. First, there's £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll receive a brand new iPhone 15 Pro Max. And finally, we'll send you on a shopping spree with £500 worth of vouchers to spend in your favourite store. But hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB01, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. this Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. Well, up next, a darling of the woke left sparks outrage by branding the Auschwitz Memorial an embarrassment to humanity. Are all woke role models frothing hypocrites? Toby Young and Joanna Jarju go head-to-head. That's next. This is Patrick Christys Tonight, right here on GB News.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show.
Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else.
We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride.
Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse.
It's news, but it's this close to entertainment.
Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
This is Patrick Christys Tonight, only on GB News. Lee Anderson coming up, but time now for the head-to-head. And Chief Race Baiter Dr. Scholler has shown her true colours again by staggeringly slamming the Auschwitz Holocaust Memorial as an embarrassment to humanity. Responding to a tweet from the group which asked people to follow their account, Dr. Scholler snapped, "I unfollowed you after your disgraceful endorsement of Israel's extermination, ethnic cleansing and genocide of Palestinians. The museum should be ashamed of itself. Never again means never again for anyone. You're an embarrassment to humanity." Yeah, that was how she started the new year, by the way. Happy New Year, let's shout at a Holocaust museum. Remarkably, Dr. Scholler was honoured by Newcastle University last month after being an equality champion, combating discrimination and promoting diversity. That is despite having previous for saying that baby killer Lucy Letby could get away with murder because she was a white woman, comparing Israel to Nazi Germany and saying, quote, "Whiteness is a sickness." But isn't this kind of hypocrisy par for the course from the left? Climate doomster actress Emma Thompson took to the streets with Extinction Rebellion last year, yet saw no problem frolicking on a private super yacht off Venice. Meanwhile, multi-millionaire open-border Democrats living in the super-exclusive Martha's Vineyard estate in the US were almost sick in their mouth when a busload of illegal migrants landed on their lawns last year. So, tonight I am asking, are all woke role models frothing hypocrites? Let me know your thoughts. Email me, gbviews@gbnews.com. Tweet me @gbnews. While you're there, go and take part in our poll. It's live now. Battling this one out is social commentator Joanna Jarju and free speech champion Toby Young. Both of you, thank you very much. It's always ladies first. Joanna, are the woke role models all frothing hypocrites?
I don't really see how. I think that, we're all human beings. And I think that for a lot of the people that some other people might call woke are just people who are trying to genuinely live better lives and trying to be a bit more compassionate. That doesn't mean that as human beings, we don't all have certain emotions and that we don't, all make mistakes. It's like people who are obviously interested in the climate debate. People try and maybe, change different things within their lifestyles, but it doesn't mean that, they're hypocrites just because people are kind of standing by and waiting for them to, slip up at any minute.
What, like getting on a business class flight or getting on a super yacht, I suppose? Maybe, Toby, what's your view?
Yeah, well, I think I probably agree with you, Patrick, that most woke spokespeople are frothing hypocrites. I'm a bit reluctant to engage directly with Dr. Scholler's latest rage bait because I'm beginning to suspect that she's a satirical creation whose Twitter has been scripted by Andrew Doyle and that she's a sort of Titania McGrath-like creation designed to make the woke left look absolutely ridiculous. And if that isn't the case, then I feel a little sorry for her because everything she tweets, everything she says just makes the woke left, makes the cause she hopes to promote look more and more silly. Attacking the Auschwitz Museum on New Year's Day, describing it as an embarrassment to humanity. I mean, she should look in the mirror if she's wondering what an embarrassment to humanity is. The idea that because the Auschwitz Museum stood up for the right of Israel to defend itself, said that the return of the hostages was a precondition of any ceasefire, the idea that that is endorsing extermination, genocide, is just completely ridiculous. She's doing her side no favours,
All
Patrick.
right. Joanna, how can someone be pro-diversity but also think that whiteness is a sickness?
Well, to be honest, I thought that we were going to discuss a bit more about what Dr. Shola actually talked about when it comes to the Holocaust Memorial. And I think in that sense, actually, I think it's completely right to call out, injustice when you see it. I think the problem here is that there's a mismatch between how different groups view the Holocaust Memorial. So when it comes to half of people, they're thinking that it's all about, the legacy of everything that's happened to the Jewish community. Other people see it as, a reference point to humanity. So to have somebody, a group, and to have this, Twitter account tweet out something like that, which is an endorsement of the Israeli state, and also to tweet that out at a point where, 10,000 people had died by then, it doesn't look like it's actually acknowledging the whole never again slogan. And you can't have it both ways, unfortunately. So I don't think that, there's anything hypocritical about calling out injustice.
Toby?
I don't think Dr. Shola was calling out injustice. I think she was deliberately courting outrage in the hope of getting clicks. I mean, it's not in any way hypocritical for a museum memorializing what happened in the concentration camps in Nazi Germany to support the state of Israel's right to exist. The Holocaust is what happened when the Jews didn't have a homeland, when they had no one to fight for them, to protect them, no standing army. So I think it's completely understandable that a museum which commemorates what happened at Auschwitz should defend Israel's right to exist and its right to defend itself, particularly in the wake of the worst massacre of Jewish people since the Second World War, which is what happened in southern Israel on October 7th. I mean, I find it very perplexing, Patrick.
Oh, I think we've lost Toby, have we?
I think they're on the side of humanity. And have you lost me?
No, I've got you. Carry on. Wrap it up.
Yeah, I find it perplexing, Patrick, the people on the left, people who think of themselves as on the side of social justice, as humanitarians, can't bring themselves to condemn what happened on October 7th, can't bring themselves to identify Hamas as a terrorist organization. It is just baffling to me.
OK, I mean, Joanna, to be honest, people are scratching their heads as to how somebody like Dr. Shola can be hailed up as a moral bastion of virtue in this world and tweet some things that people regularly find utterly vile.
Look, I think that Dr. Shola's language is definitely strong, to put it lightly, and I don't think that, it's always the best approach to use when you want to kind of campaign for something, which maybe the intent of it is sincere. But let's not forget that Dr. Shola was actually following this page before this. She unfollowed for a reason, because she felt as if the things that the page was saying were basically betraying the greater good of what the page is supposed to be about when we think about Auschwitz, about when we think about Holocaust Memorial. Yes, it's something in a legacy as a part of the Jewish community that we should never forget, but it also changed the whole trajectory of Europe and the way that we see things. And this whole never forget thing, I don't think that should be completely forgotten now.
I do find it utterly remarkable that somebody can be an equality champion, combating discrimination and promoting diversity when viewing everything through the prism of race and spouting about race all the time. And I would argue, Toby, as well, doing quite a lot to divide us. The baby killer Lucy Letby could get away with murder because she was a white woman. I mean, Toby, this stuff's ridiculous, no?
It's so divisive, Patrick. It's an example of reverse racism. It's exactly the kind of thing that Claudine Gay has been embarrassed about, and why she's had to resign as the president of Harvard, making her the shortest-lived president in the history of Harvard University. This kind of reverse racism is every bit as disgusting as straightforward racism. And I think people are gradually waking up to that fact. And I think people who endorse this reverse racism I think their careers are going to be fairly short-lived now. Maybe Dr. Shola won't be as short-lived as Claudine Gay. I think she's probably not going to be with us for much longer.
Yeah, all right. Very quick, Johnny, go on.
That isn't even the one. First of all, that isn't even the definition of reverse racism. And actually, I think that what Dr. Shola, again, and some of the words that she uses aren't words that I would particularly use. They're very strong and sometimes can, teeter on the edge of being offensive. But actually, I think what she was trying to, point out was the fact that there is unconscious bias in these situations in terms of who is seen as more threatening, potentially, and who is seen as somebody who is more innocent. And maybe Lucy Letby fit more of that archetype. We see it all the time when it comes to discrimination. It's in the numbers. So it's nothing to do with reverse racism. It's more about unconscious bias.
Both of you, thank you very, very much. Great stuff, that. Proper head-to-head. Joanna Jarju there. Of course, the social commentator and free speech champion, Toby Young. So who do you agree with? Are all woke role models frothing hypocrites? Barry on Twitter says, Patrick, she's one of, if not the biggest racist in this country. Obviously, Dr. Shirley would deny this. These are Barry's views. She should be investigated. Dev said on Twitter, what a despicable thing to say. Why on earth are figures like her allowed to get away with saying such things? But Phoebe on Twitter says, in no way is Shouty Shoulder a role model. Right, not a huge amount of different shades of grey there when it comes to the response about the old woke icons being frothing hypocrites. Your verdict is now in. 94% of you agree that woke role models are hypocrites. 6% of you say they aren't. Coming up, rumours are swirling that Prince Andrew and Sarah Ferguson are thinking about marrying again. What would Prince Philip think? And with the late Prince Philip not around, though, to keep Fergie at arm's length, are we about to see a reunion of the Yorks? Esteemed royal author Angela Levin reveals all the inside goss shortly. Plus, coming up in my 10 o'clock monologue, will junior doctors have blood on their hands? Are their strikes purely political? Do we need to pay our doctors more to keep them in the NHS? I went down to the strikes this morning to speak to one of those ringleaders.
Are you comfortable adding to that, though, the death toll? That's what's political, isn't it? That's what you're talking about. You see, it's got political quite quickly there. No. General election, change of government, Labour government. Are you personally affected by the issue with doctors' pay, then?
But first, Britain is suffering a violent crime wave of thugs targeting owners of a high-end type of coat, which sell for around 1,300 to 1,700 quid each. I've got a shocking video to show you of one incident in Kent at the weekend. Meanwhile, the Lib Dems today refused to rule out a coalition of chaos with Labour. Deputy Tory Party Chairman Lee Anderson joins me for his no-nonsense reaction to that, and Fat Cat NHS bosses raking home 300k despite epic failures. This is Patrick Christys Tonight. Don't move.
(2024), a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together. For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show, every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Patrick Christys tonight on GB News, and it's time now for GB News star and Westminster's toughest talking MP, Lee Anderson. And if you're not yet down with the kids, OK, a coat and jacket brand called Canada Goose has taken the fashion world by storm over the past year, I would argue maybe decade, despite their high-end clobber also coming with astronomical price tags. But in the same fashion as Rolex watches or the luxury goods, Canada Goose coat owners are now the target of violent street muggings, and thieves try and profit from their hefty £1,300 price tags. This is the shocking moment that two hooded thugs tried stealing one of these coveted coats in broad daylight at a train station at the weekend. Well, last month, the Transport for London chief warned that youngsters travelling on the tube were being targeted for North Face and Canada Goose coats. These are incredibly popular, these, and crucially, there's a lot of fakes around as well, with an 83% rise in the number of thefts recorded from just under 3,000 in 2022 to nearly 5,500 in 2023. Well, Lee Anderson joins me now. Lee, how have we become lawless Britain?
Well, look, Patrick. I mean, I've just seen those very disturbing scenes there. These hooligans, these thugs, these thieves stealing coats in broad daylight. You know, it begs the question, Patrick. Why aren't these people at work doing an honest day's work, paying their taxes and contributing towards society? I'll tell you why that is, Patrick. It's because they've got no intentions of integrating and contributing to this great country of ours. These thugs, these yobbos, they need locking up, they need putting away for good. People going about their business on a daily basis, yes, they might buy an expensive coat. So what? If they've been to work and earned their money and bought a coat that's worth £1,000, whatever it is, they have the right to go about their daily business without this scum attacking them in broad daylight and taking their coats off them. And the police need to step up on this. I'm quite furious about this. You know, I had a case in my constituency recently where a shopkeeper was attacked. I actually witnessed the attack after the shopkeeper had been, had goods stolen from his shop. I intervened, helped the shopkeeper avoid this vicious assault, and the police took over a month to come and to arrest the culprit, even though the culprit had apologised and admitted the crime on social media. The police took a month. And now I've just learned, just this week, Patrick, that the police haven't even passed it on to the CPS. This was a man, a shopkeeper, who had been assaulted and been robbed in broad daylight, and the police haven't even got the guts or the backbone to pass it on to the CPS. It's absolutely disgusting.
Yeah. It's remarkable. And the reason why I wanted to bring this story to people's attention is that I know, especially in the winter months, there'll be a lot of people walking around wearing these kind of jackets. And you should be aware now that there are people out there who are desperate to try and nick these. And it's an incredibly invasive process, literally physically taking a jacket off someone, especially a woman out on her own, walking a dog. Yeah. I mean, she will probably think that there's something else going on there as well, someone trying to rip your jacket off. But, Lee, Reform UK and the Lib Dems both launched their election campaigns today, so it's a busy day in politics, right? This is what Reform leader Richard Tice had to say about your party this morning and later Nigel Farage's prospects of a return to politics.
The truth is, the Tories have become like the Labour Party, two sides of the same socialist coin. People talk about Nigel and Reform UK, the better. It does our job for us of raising brand awareness because we're a relatively new brand. The more help Nigel can give, the better. But he's got some important decisions to make, and a good poker player always keeps their cards close to the chest.
Yeah, meanwhile, Sir Ed Davey of the Lib Dems also took a crack before later refusing to rule out a coalition with Labour.
Here it is, 2024, the year the voters finally get to pack up this awful, out-of-touch Conservative government.
Yes to a coalition with Labour?
No, I'm focused on the general election.
Grief. Lee, are we in for a coalition of chaos between the Lib Dems and Labour?
Well, listen, first of all, Patrick, let's just ignore Ed Davey. He's a bit of a laughingstock. Whatever happens at the next election, they'll be turning up on day one in their minibus, probably a battery-powered minibus, because they'll return about 12 MPs. But let's go on to Mr Tice. Mr Tice is the leader of the Reform Party, and as I understand, Patrick, he's unelected. He actually took the reins of the Reform Party after Nigel stepped down. This is not a proper political party, by the way. This is a company. Nobody elected Mr Tice at all, but he's sort of spouting his mouth off, and he's had a little pop at me today. And I get on with Richard reasonably well, but I would say this: he's not Nigel Farage. He's not the leader that Nigel Farage was. In fact, I agree with one of my constituents who said to me earlier today, is a bit of a pound shop, Nigel Farage. I think he needs to pipe down a little bit because, if the unthinkable happens, Patrick, and next year we do get a Labour government, and Richard Tice is on his media platforms saying what a disaster this Stormageddon, what a disaster the Labour Party are, I shall be reminding Mr Tice it was him that helped them got elected.
I mean, he might hit back and say, actually, it was 13 to 14 years of Tory mismanagement.
Well, I'm not interested, Patrick, in what Mr Tice has got to say. I said this yesterday on GBNews. It's all right for the likes of Mr Tice. He's got a bobby too. He's probably a millionaire. He can go back to his little penthouse overlooking the Thames. If Labour do win the election, he can shut his curtains and get on with his life. What I'm worried about is the people of this great country, and especially the people of Ashfield, who will suffer, I think, untold damage under a Labour government.
So you don't think that Richard Tice has got the minerals to be a proper politician?
I don't think he is a proper like I say, Patrick, I think he's a pound shop, Nigel Farage, and every time he opens his mouth recently, on whichever media platform, he's coming across as the Reform's answer to Diane Abbott.
What do you mean by that?
Well, he's just saying ridiculous things. I mean, in one breath, he was saying just a few weeks ago that I had not been approached by Reform to walk the floor. And just a week later, I think his deputy had to correct that comment to say that there was a conversation that actually took place. Look, like I say, Patrick, is no Nigel Farage. I think Nigel Farage would have got the communications, the comms, a little bit better. And like I said, I think it was yesterday on GBNews, hardly anybody in Ashfield has actually heard of Richard Tice. He hasn't got that connection. He hasn't got that. He hasn't got that. With Nigel Farage, you could go and have a drink with him. You could have a pint with him. You could go and socialise with him. Tice hasn't got that. He needs to pipe down a little bit and actually explain to the public what it's all about.
All right, I think I can hear a phone ringing somewhere in the distance, and Richard Tice is desperate to come.
Patrick, I mean, I'll have a chat with him right now.
Oh, all right. Would you be willing to come on and have a clash with him tomorrow?
I'll have a clash with him anytime.
All right. Well, there you go. How's that sorted then? Lee, thank you very much, mate. Cheers.
How do you like them apples?
Yeah, all right. Strong apples. All right, Lee Allison, thank you very much. The Deputy Chairman of the Tory Party kicking off there. So there we go. That was GBNews star and Deputy Chair of the Tories, Lee Allison. I mean, it looks like we're about to have a massive ding-dong tomorrow, doesn't it, right here on this show. But coming up in my 10 p.m. monologue, will junior doctors have blood on their hands, and are the strikes purely political, or do we need to pay our doctors more to keep them in the NHS? People very divided on this. People very divided. I went down to the strike today to speak to one of those ringleaders, though.
Are you comfortable adding to that, though, the death toll? That stops political, isn't it? That's what you're talking about. You see, it's got political quite quickly there.
No.
General election, change of government, Labour government. Are you personally affected by the issue with doctors' pay, then?
Yeah, I'll share that full interaction shortly. But next, she was once exiled from the royal family after embarrassingly being pictured sucking the toes of her lover. I think it was actually having her toes sucked. But anyway, rumours now suggest that Fergie is sensationally thinking about remarrying Prince Andrew. What would the late Prince Philip think? Top royal author Angela Levin gives her forensic analysis. That's next. This is Patrick Christys Tonight, only on GB News.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show.
Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else.
We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride.
Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse.
It's news, but it's this close to entertainment.
Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
All right, this is Patrick Christys Tonight, only on GB News. And coming up, do junior doctors have blood on their hands? Dr. Rob Lawrenson will be joining me shortly. He's the one who's been rattling the can and getting all of those junior doctors out on strike. But now it is time for our Royal Dispatch with top author Angela Levin. Who would have thought that Fergie would navigate her way back into the royal family as well as Prince Andrew's heart? Rumours have started to swirl the pair are considering remarrying almost 30 years after they divorced. But Fergie's father, Major Ronald Ferguson, has blamed the palace for the initial split, with Prince Philip, Princess Margaret reportedly driving the force behind giving her the boot. Fergie's presence at Sandringham for Christmas, though, turned heads, considering the last time she was invited was before Diana and Charles separated. And it's believed this infamous splash on the Sun, where the Duchess of York is having her toes sucked, is what lost her a seat at the country's top table. So, Angela Levin, what do we know about this rumoured remarrying?
Well, it's very interesting. I think a lot of it is since Prince Philip has passed away, who couldn't bear her, didn't allow her to come 20-some odd years. So when he died, the Queen started getting much more friendly with her. She's always liked her because it makes her laugh and she's so bubbly and alive. And then I think, actually, what the big change is the cancer she had.
Right.
I think you can keep separate and you want to go your own way. But if you are a loving couple and they still love each other, although they're not married and they have separate rooms and all that sort of thing, you start rethinking. And she was obviously very ill. Her operation was 10 hours long, and she came back to live in the lodge to be with, to have nursing help. And I think that you feel that, how much you want that person. And I think that's changed things. I think another thing is that both her children have got their own children. And it's sort of she's sort of slightly out of it as part of the family. And it would be very nice if they were together. She's been a very good mother. She's never said a bad word about the monarchy. And she's never said a bad word about Prince Andrew. She's always said, well, for me, he's a great man, he's a wonderful father. She's stuck to being actually very moral in that sort of way.
Do you think it's interesting that maybe initially she was seen as the slight liability in that relationship and now it's possibly Andrew?
Not necessarily, no. I think they had a rather strange relationship. When they were married for the first 5 years, she only saw him for 40 days a year. He was off with the Navy. And so she got restless, he got restless. And she said, we both realised we had open marriages. I'm not quite sure what they mean by that. Yeah. I won't dig into that. But that's what it was. And I think it was very difficult because she was used to going to parties and being, flying her plane that she learnt how to do, writing a book she learnt how to do. She did loads and loads of different things. And then they got fed up and they drew apart because of the lack of closeness. And they had been friends when they were little children. They had known each other from then. So their relationship is quite solid, although rather bizarre.
She's stuck with him through all of the latest round of the Epstein allegations, etc. as well, hasn't she?
Yes. Yes, she absolutely has.
Do you think she's going to continue to do that?
Yes, I think she would. I think she will. And, of course, Camilla, the Queen, is very forgiving. She doesn't bear grudges at all. So she was, I'm quite sure, encouraged her to come to church. Last year she went just for lunch, and this year she went to church. And she did behave very, very well. She was smiling and waving at everyone. Her dressing was a green dress and a green hat. It was all right. So she was really showing that everything was very good and lovely. And she didn't walk holding Andrew's hand. She behaved very properly.
Is she a good thing for the royal family, though? Is she a good thing, therefore, by definition, for Britain?
I don't think she's necessarily a good friend for the royal family, but she does lots of charity work, and most of her charity work is for children, and a lot of them is for children with cancer. So that's very helpful because there's very few people now doing all that
Even though a couple of people in California might shout about it rather a lot, we've got Sarah Ferguson there who is actually doing some genuine charity work.
And she loves the monarchy, and she's been behaving very well.
It'll be fascinating to see what the public's reaction to all of this is. But, Angela, can I just thank you very, very much for coming on and enlightening us all with your inside wisdom there. That is the esteemed royal biographer, Angela Levin. Thank you very, very much. Well, look, coming up, 16-year-old British dart sensation Luke Littler is currently playing the biggest match of his career as he battles it out in the World Darts Championship final for 500 grand, OK? We will cross live to go do Lally at the Ali Pally for the very latest from this lot.
Hey, baby, it's Patrick Christys tonight. Yeah, baby.
Former darts world champion Keith Deller joins me live at 10:20 for his reaction to a historic night. We will also hear live from the scene from our reporter Ray Addison. But next, in my 10 p.m. monologue, will junior doctors have blood on their hands? And are the strikes purely political? Do we need to pay our doctors more to keep them in the NHS? I went down to the strikes today to confront one of their union ringleaders. I will share that full interaction in just a few moments. It's not to be missed. This is Patrick Christys tonight on GB News.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Tomorrow, for most places, a dry and a bright day. A few scattered showers, but the potential for some very wet weather across the far south. Storm Henk is disappearing away to the east, but this little weather front is going to generate some wet weather across the south tomorrow. Still got low pressure up to the north of Scotland as well. Plenty of showers packing in here this evening. Quite a wet evening across eastern Scotland, but elsewhere the weather is turning a bit drier. Plenty of showers still across northwest England. Of course, any extra rain falling because it's been so wet could cause some further issues. Temperatures mostly holding up a few degrees above freezing. Bright start then across the Midlands, South Wales and indeed the southeast of England too. Elsewhere, quite a bit of cloud, some showers still over northwest England and northern parts of Scotland. But down to the south, we are looking at this next area of rain coming in. Some uncertainty about how quickly it gets in, but parts of Devon and Somerset may well turn wet by lunchtime, and then that rain likely to spread up towards the southeast during the day. Could be quite heavy. And of course, again, because it's falling onto saturated ground, likely to cause some issues. It may be a little bit further north, it may be a little bit further south. For many, though, it stays dry and bright through Thursday with some sunny spells, temperatures a little above average. That rain should scoot away on Friday, then we're left with a few showers, but the weather is turning drier and calmer through the weekend, but also a bit colder. Goodbye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show.
Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else.
We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride.
Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse.
It's news, but it's this close to entertainment.
Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
It's 10 p.m. and this is Patrick Christys Tonight. It's about time somebody confronted the militant junior doctors leader.
Are you comfortable adding to that, though, the death toll? That's what's political, isn't it? That's what you're talking about. You see, it's got political quite quickly there. No. General election, change of government, Labour government. Are you personally affected by the issue with doctors' pay, then?
It's gone doolally at the Ali Pally.
Why is he so good?
Whole of the UK's got to be spoiling. Too right.
It's all about making history. This is a moment.
We'll be crossing live. There he is, to GB News reporter Ray Addison with the latest from Alexandra Palace as Luke Littler goes large in search of a historic victory. Someone's going to clip that. Plus, can we just check in? Can we just check in now with the Liberal Democrats? Just make sure everything's completely normal over there. Stick to the socks and sandals, lads. Talking of lads, look who the UN has chosen as its UK champion for women's rights.
The uncomfortable truth is that the white race is the most violent and oppressive force of nature on Earth.
We tackle that as I show you what's on tomorrow's front pages before anyone else. And on the sofa tonight, it's Christine Hamilton, Adam Brooks and Matthew Larza. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. All right, after the news, find out what happened when I confronted the militant junior doctor leading the strikes.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Another yellow weather warning for rain is on its way for tomorrow after Storm Henk battered parts of the UK last night. The West Midlands Ambulance Service is warning people to take extra care after several people had to be rescued from cars caught in floodwaters. Parts of Birmingham, Leicester and Northampton are already flooded. Meanwhile, a 50-year-old man has been killed when a tree fell on his car while driving in Gloucestershire. And now there's more rain on the way, with people warned to expect more travel disruption tomorrow. Nottingham hospitals have declared a critical incident, urging patients not to attend hospital unless it's an emergency. It's due to extreme pressure on services, with hospitals and A&E full. It comes as a number of hospitals have called on striking junior doctors to return to work due to patient safety concerns. 6 days of industrial action began this morning after talks between the government and the BMA union broke down. Junior doctors want a 35% pay rise, which they say would restore their real earnings to levels seen in 2008. The government says that's unaffordable, but insists the door remains open for further negotiations. A 15-year-old boy has been arrested on suspicion of murder following a stabbing in North London on New Year's Eve. 16-year-old Harry Pittman died following what police say was an altercation as crowds gathered on Primrose Hill to watch the fireworks. Posting on social media, his sister described him as a good boy with a heart of gold and said he wasn't part of any gang and wouldn't have been involved in violence. A convicted killer who refused to reveal where he'd hidden the body of his victim has died in jail while serving a life sentence. Scott Walker was jailed in 2021 for the murder of 17-year-old Bernadette Walker. It's understood she referred to him as her father, though they were not related. She was murdered in 2020 after accusing the 53-year-old of sexually abusing her over a number of years. Walker died in prison in December without ever revealing the location of Bernadette's body. There have been 2 explosions at a memorial ceremony in Iran, killing more than 100 people. Iranian state TV showed footage of crowds running as ambulances rushed to the scene. Officials described it as a terrorist attack as people gathered to commemorate the death of a senior commander 4 years ago. So far, no one has claimed responsibility for the attack. And Luke Littler is making history tonight as the youngest player to compete in the final of the World Darts Championship. At just 16, he beat Rob Cross 6-2 in the semi-finals last night at Alexandra Palace. Now he's taking on the new world number 1, Luke Humphries, in the final, where the score is currently 6-4. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on your digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. Now it's back to Patrick.
The junior doctors are back out on strike. Now, the nation is very, very divided on this. Some people think they deserve a pay rise. Other people think they've got blood on their hands. Now, nobody, though, is more conflicted than the father of the co-chair of the BMA's Juniors Doctors Union, who said he's a customer of the NHS and a taxpayer and his son wants more money. He didn't realise that he was some kind of red in the bed. Well, his private schoolboy son, Robert Lawrenson, was out on the picket lines today outside St Thomas's Hospital in London. So I confronted him on several things. Firstly, the idea that with 1 million appointments and operations being cancelled, people like him are actually contributing to patient deaths. Now, he gave me the usual guff, existing waiting lists, backlogs, yada, yada.
So we saw 12 million appointments being cancelled and rescheduled last year, a fraction of which were caused by strike action.
Are you comfortable adding to that, though, the death toll?
There's never a good time to strike. There's no winners in strike action. We'd much rather be at work.
Really? There's never a good time to strike. Well, striking right in the middle of the busiest period for the NHS could be seen as malicious and actually the worst time to strike. Look, I can't be the only one who's at least had thoughts that these militant unionists just want to destabilise the government even more. It's never too long, is it, before it all goes very political. It goes from a pay dispute to needing a change of government.
Unfortunately, the government in Westminster can't commit to negotiating for 3 years' time because there is no constitutional lifespan to do that. The Westminster needs to have a general election in the next...
That's what's political, isn't it? That's what you're talking about. You see, it's got political quite quickly there.
No.
General election, change of government, Labour government.
No.
The thing about Dr Lawrenson is that he talks a very good game about cash-strapped junior doctors living hand-to-mouth and struggling to deal with the cost of living crisis. But I did put it to the lad who went to a top private school, is listed reportedly as the director of an investment company that, as of August, again reportedly held £2 million worth of assets and reportedly owns a £500,000 property with no mortgage, that he might not really be feeling the pinch himself.
I lose pay from going out on strike, yes.
OK. It's just your kind of personal finances is obviously caused quite a lot of scrutiny.
I mean, everyone has different financial circumstances.
Then, of course, there's the issue of him being accused of going on holiday during the last doctor's strike. And it's important to state that Dr Lawrenson should not be accused of going on holiday during the last doctor's strike, or the one before that. And if you do...
That's slander.
That's slander. But, of course, he did take time off for a wedding during the strikes in April. Why?
No, I'm very happy to attend those life-changing events and go to friends and families moment.
Yeah, of course. Unfortunately, the doctors on strike won't be there for people's life-changing moments when they're lying in hospital beds in the coming days. They always bang on about the NHS being underfunded. It needs more funding. Taxpayers have to give it more money. But maybe some NHS strikers should be looking inwards at the way that the NHS wastes money.
Look, the NHS manages its resources, how it chooses to manage its resources. Lots of people have different opinions on how they manage it. I mean, frankly, from where I'm sitting, I don't understand how a doctor's pay can be cut by 26% when we've got those issues with the waiting lists, with A&Es, with GP appointments. And it begs the question, why are frontline staff not getting paid properly?
Yeah, that was, of course, in relation to fat cats. That's some of the worst performing NHS trusts getting paid £300,000, diversity managers, etc., getting paid 3, 4, 5 times what a junior doctor gets paid. But I wanted to take the most important element of this clip until last, actually. If a pay rise is so important to retaining junior doctors in Britain, then surely the BMA Junior Doctors Union co-chair would say that if his demands were met, he would actually stay and work in our NHS.
But you could be a part of all of this now and then just leave anyway.
I hope to have a long and successful career of about 40, 50
Are you
years.
actively planning on going to Canada or Australia as it currently stands right now?
No.
But you're not ruling it out in the future?
Oh, correct. I'm not ruling it out in the future, no.
Right, so he's quite possibly off anyway, isn't he? Obviously, some people might accuse Dr Lawrenson of being the politically motivated face of a pay crisis he isn't actually affected by, who is already mentally decided to leave Britain, even if his demands are met in full. But I wouldn't accuse him of that. Why? Because...
That's slander.
Absolutely. To respond now, I'm joined again by author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larzer. Look, Christine, do you think that potentially the junior doctors are being, in a sense, led out on strike by a bloke who's actually very financially comfortable himself and is just going to do one anyway, even if the pay demands are met?
Well, let's leave him to one side. I mean, he's clearly a privileged lad, but that doesn't stop him leading a strike. It shouldn't bar him from doing it. But I was deeply unimpressed by his manner and the way he couldn't really be bothered to answer your questions, could he? But this is a political strike that's completely politically motivated. The junior doctors, they've had an 8.8% increase going up to next March, which is, as it happens, yes, we've had inflation, but everybody has suffered the effects of inflation. That 8.8 is exactly the same as the state pension, to which, thank you very much, I'm a grateful recipient. So, it's not too bad. The average pay of a junior doctor in their first year is $41,300. Now, they don't all get that, but that is the average. The people behind this are the BMA. They are, as I call them, the bloody-minded activists. And they have been very Marxist-oriented right from the word go. Do you know, after the war, but during the war, before the war, during the war, when it was going, they said that they did not want the British government to accept 500 Jewish doctors because they didn't think it would be any good for their pool of doctors. It wouldn't do them any good. Now, that was the BMA. After the war, when the National Health Service was set up, they didn't want the National Health Service. They are so politically motivated, and that is what is behind this strike.
Well, obviously we haven't got to the BMA for comment on those specific allegations, of course. I mean, that would have been weird if we'd had the foresight to do that. But the idea, miraculously, we've it's funny you should say that, Christy, because Adam, on a serious note, the idea of
hang on, that was all very serious.
Well, it was, it's true.
Very serious.
All right, Christy. Now, when it comes to this pay rise, right, the idea that if you pay the doctors their demands, which equates to somewhere around a 35% pay rise, all in all, depending on how far back you track it, right, that is enough to keep them in the country and not leave to Australia or Canada, is absolutely rubbish. You've got people like that who are saying, well, they quite possibly just go anyway.
I thought he come across so arrogant.
Yeah.
I think he come across as a proper, posh pipsqueak.
Entitled.
Right? Entitled is another word. You know, I was cringing watching that. At the end of the day, these people have chosen to study and go into a profession knowing what the starting pay is, signing contracts knowing what the starting pay is, and now they want 35%. It's an absolute disgrace. I do not know how they live with themselves, and they've got blood on their hands. People, probably hundreds, maybe thousands, will die in the coming weeks because of these strikes.
All right,
unforgivable.
So that is very much one side of it, right? There is another side, and I know a lot of our viewers and listeners subscribe to the other side, OK? And I was out there today, at that picket line. I actually also spoke to a chap who'd come off the back of a night shift, was there, said that, look, he does want to commit his future to Britain and the pay will probably be enough to keep him there as well. You know, he doesn't feel as though he particularly wants to be on strike. All of this stuff. I mean, there is a case for giving in their pay demands, isn't there?
Look, absolutely. There's a case for giving them a new pay settlement. I think the 35% figure is ludicrous, and Labour's been very clear that sorting junior doctors' pay out is going to be a journey and not an event. But I have to say, he's the worst advertisement possible for their cause, because he makes me absolutely shudder. One of my best friends was not in that London hospital, but another in a London hospital, went to A&E today. The standing doctor couldn't log in after 5 hours. Patients asked being huddled together in the corridor to share a single drip. People screaming out for pay medication. So clearly this is impacting people. That's my friend's experience today alone.
And that's as a result, we think, of the strikes?
Yeah, yes, because the people there are the people covering. The only people covering are consultants who are getting their hands dirty.
So it's costing lives.
I think it's pretty clear that it is costing lives, and that's why we need to settle it. So he needs to get off his high horse and stop cosplaying Bob Crow. I mean, you know, and the government needs to get off its high horse and start negotiating, which it won't do because they've got to stand.
I mean, some people think he's quite a slick operator. I mean, there is obviously a fuller version of that interview as well. We'll play more clips of that. But, you know, he's not the worst operator in the world. He's got an answer for everything, Christy.
Well, I mean, the doctors cherry-pick the base line when they say that they want 35%. They're going back to a time when they were quite low down. But over the last 10 years, they haven't done too badly when you compare them with other professions. And they say that they get the same amount as a cappuccino server. A cappuccino server doesn't have the career prospects...
Or a 20% pension. Or a 20% pension, and that's important.
That is a ludicrous comparison.
This is purely political and anti-Tory...
Absolutely political.
Action, because at the end of the day, the Scottish junior doctors, I think, accepted a 12.4% pay rise. To come in at 35%, and I've got silly lefties on my Twitter today saying, yeah, that you always have to start high in negotiations. That's not starting high. That's an absolute S-take, you know.
Yeah. I mean, as somebody who's been on strike, that is fairly ludicrous. I mean, what my poor friend suffering today said is, the thing that makes me mad about it is once you get into med school, you're basically guaranteed a job, and yet they expect to be paid the same as people who are taking enormous risks, like barristers or competing in grad schemes. And I think the problem is you've had this pyramid system where, for years, because everybody was quite posh who went into medicine, you expected to get paid not much at the beginning, and you earn a lot later on.
Social
and now, because more diverse backgrounds, background, it's a problem because
But I've got to
it's
ask,
a problem. But then you've got to spread the butter thinner across the whole time.
But there is definitely a sense on those picket lines that the second that there's a Labour government, then their problems go away. And I don't think that's true.
No, and look, West Streeting, Labour's health spokesperson, has been absolutely clear. The 35% they're dreaming, and the sorting it out is going to be, his exact phrase is, a journey, not an event. Yes, of course, we'll do what we can, but it's going to be, it's not going to be an instant.
But then this continues. But then this is the thing, right? This continues. Him saying there, you heard it there. We need a change of government.
Well, I think the senior doctors want to get rid. Want to get rid of he and his co-chair. The older, the more experienced doctors who've already settled. This is the younger doctors who are in dispute, and I think that there may be a bit of pressure within the BMA.
Well, the root problem, apart from the BMA, is that the NHS is not fit for purpose. It's had its day. It was brilliant when it came in, but I mean, what in the name of matron is the point in having a service that's free at the point of delivery if you can't get to see a doctor? We don't need national pay negotiations. We don't, because that makes it political. Every single individual NHS trust should be negotiating for themselves. We should break down
can I just interrupt?
Huge, ridiculous monopoly.
Just interrupt, because we've got a remarkable late entry into this conversation, actually. Let me bring in former Health Minister Edwina Currie. Edwina, thank you very much. OK, I'm hoping that you might have heard some of my interactions with the BMA's junior doctor co-chair there. What do you make of that? Do you think that these strikes are political? Do you think they should be getting a pay rise? Do you think that they're responsible for excess deaths? Go on.
I want to say congratulations, Patrick. I think you took that posh git to pieces very effectively, and I was cheering as you did.
All right, well, thank you. Obviously, if we denied, I don't know if it would.
What I would like to hear, though, is a great deal more outrage about what they're actually doing in the middle of the winter, with millions and millions of old people absolutely scared stiff, because actually we are most of the patients. We are most of the people that are inpatients. We have the more complex issues. This is when people slip. This is when people break things. This is when they have chosen. Nobody's forced them. This is when they have chosen to call the longest strike in the entire NHS history. This is an outrage, absolute outrage. If anybody else, Patrick, was holding to ransom for money for themselves a group of sick old people and saying, no, we have to do this and we're more important and our highest priority is actually our pay, then the whole nation would be screaming at them and saying...
What he said, one more thing he said, one other thing he said to me, Edwina, which I would like to put to you, is that he said that nurses are not striking and therefore they got a worse pay offer. He was adamant that the only way to make the government listen now, to get their demands, to stop losing doctors, which, by the way, can I say, was, in my view, completely undermined by the idea that he doesn't rule out just leaving anyway, but to stop losing doctors to abroad is to strike. He feels that they don't really have any other option. I think it's just fair that we put that across.
No, what he feels is politics. What he says is absolute nonsense. And indeed, one of your guests pointed that out, because in Scotland, they settled back in the summer of 2023 for 12.4%. That what they've got on offer, what they've had already this year is just under 9%, as Christine said. There's another 3% on the table. That comes to almost the same figure. So how come they can have enough in Scotland and they haven't got enough in England? What's the difference? The difference is it's an SNP government in Scotland and it's a Tory government in England. About politics.
I put that to them. I mean, the guy...
Selfish and a miserable thing that's going on there. It really is.
OK, they were very clear to me when I put it to him. He was saying that there's different the intricacies of the SNP's deal with them there, that the people didn't go on strike to get that deal, that it's staggered over 3 years, etc.
They're still striking in Wales.
But they are still striking in Wales. There we go. Thank you, Matthew Lars, for that. Well, look, I've got to ask, what would some of the great Tory leaders like Margaret Thatcher do about this?
Well, Margaret stood up to strike action, and she made it absolutely clear that you don't give in to strikes. I mean, there's a practical element here, a pragmatic element here, which I'm sure Keir Starmer's thinking about as well. At the moment a government starts to give in to strikes, two things happen. The first is you get a lot more strikes, and you also get a lot of pay demands. And the way to keep inflation under control, as we learned back in the 1970s, is actually you have to say no. It's quite clear that even in a future Labour government, that would be exactly the same problem. Rachel Reeves is promising tax cuts, for heaven's sake. You can't have tax cuts and be paying these guys an awful lot more money. That we need to resist this. We need to be quite clear about it. What they're doing is wicked. It's really, really wrong. Whether it works, whether it's practical or not, whether it's political, they really should be doing it.
Edwina, thank you very much. Edwina Curry there, the former Health Minister. Look, a couple of things that I think were incredibly revealing about that chat with Dr Robert Lawrenson, who I've been desperate to try and get on the show for quite a while, actually, are that no talk of wastage within the NHS when it comes to paying other people quite a lot of money, not junior doctors. No talk about that whatsoever. Absolutely no guarantee whatsoever that if we give them this massive pay rise that they are going to stay in the country. Far from it, and that's a problem, OK? And I will just say as well, there did not seem to be a huge degree of concern at all for the loss of human life that is taking place at the moment. I found that fascinating, and I think it is a problem. I think it is a problem. And junior doctors as well can make their own minds up as to whether or not that particular individual is someone that they want to line up behind at the picket lines. But coming up in my press pack, tomorrow's first newspaper front pages, hot off the press. No doubt there'll be a bit more on the doctors' strike on there, but the panel will get stuck into the campaign launches of Reform UK and the Lib Dems. The latter refused to deny a coalition of chaos with Labour. But next, teenage English darts sensation Luke Littler endured the biggest match of his life tonight in the Darts World Championship final. If you don't want to know the result, put your fingers in your ears now. I can tell you that Luke went down fighting to lose the final 7-4 to world number 1 Luke Humphries. Absolutely no shame in that. But he won 5 straight sets in a spectacular comeback to claim the £500,000 prize. Former world darts champion Keith Deller joins me live imminently for the first reaction to a historic night in British sport. This is Patrick Christys tonight on GB News. But before that, though, of course, it's the final week of our Great British Giveaway. Your chance to win the latest iPhone, a shopping spree, 10 grand in cash. Make sure you don't miss out. Lines close on Friday, and here's how you can win.
It's the final week to see how you could be the winner of the Great British Giveaway. Your chance to grab 3 amazing prizes. First, there's £10,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll receive a brand new iPhone 15 Pro Max. And finally, we'll send you on a shopping spree with £500 worth of vouchers to spend in your favourite store. But hurry, as lines close at 5 p.m. on Friday. For another chance to win the iPhone, the vouchers and £10,000 cash, text GBWIN to 84902. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or post your name and number to GB01, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. this Friday. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Good luck.
Get on it, people. Good luck. Now, live reaction to Luke Littler's World Darts Championship final next. And, well, the result, of course, is it's not what he wanted. But anyway, see you in a moment.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show.
Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else.
We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride.
Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse.
It's news, but it's this close to entertainment.
Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Now, 16-year-old darts phenomenon Luke Littler has just finished his historic World Darts Championship final fight at the Ali Pali. If you don't want to know the result, I'm going to tell you. So, after steaming ahead, Littler went down fighting to lose the final 7-4 to world number 1, Luke Humphries, who won 5 straight sets in a spectacular comeback to claim that £500,000 prize. Earlier, we spoke to some of the balmy fans in attendance at an event that's captured the nation's attention.
Hey, baby, it's Patrick Christys tonight. Yeah, baby.
Win tonight.
Luke, I think Luke.
Why?
Sure.
Why?
I think Luke is the best. Yes.
Why is Luke going to win?
Just look at him, seeing he's playing, he's just a really good dart player. He's only 16. It's his first time at the Ali Pali, so I think he's going to win because Luke Humphries is an absolute rat.
So who are you supporting tonight?
Oh, it's got to be Luke.
Yeah.
Got to be.
Yeah.
Got to
All
be.
over it. All over it. Yeah. Why? Why is he so good?
Whole of the UK's got to be supporting him. Too right.
It's all
Why
about
not?
making history. This is a moment. Who's going to win tonight?
I hope the little one.
The little one.
I'm the one who bet for Humphries, but the only in the family.
Okay. And yourself?
I said Luke Littler is going to win. Luke is going to win.
1, 2, 3.
180!
Lovely. Thank you, mate.
All right, just take my wallet and go away. All right? Just leave me alone, that little... yeah, I mean, look, Luke Littler was, until moments ago, essentially living the dream. 16 years old, looks about 35, he'd never get ID'd in Tesco's. He's won about, I don't know, like 200 grand or something. He's got 21-year-old missus. I mean, it's the absolute dream, but sadly, it wasn't to be. It wasn't to be. I'm joined now by former professional darts player and 1983-year-old world champion, Keith Deller. Keith, what happened to Luke Littler tonight?
He missed the one dart to go 5 sets to 2 up, Patrick. That was the difference. When he went 4-2 up, Luke Humphries was on the... He was struggling a little bit. And when he missed that one dart to go 5-2, which then really would have hurt big time, but 4-3, it was then Luke Humphries' throw in the next set. It was game on again. And after that, Luke Humphries just went up another gear. Too good.
Do you think that the occasion at all got to him, or do you think that he'll be back better than ever next year?
Well, he'll be back, and he's going to be... He's got so many world championships ahead of him now, hasn't he? Because, I mean, 16 years old. I know we all say it. I mean, I wish I could grow a beard. I still couldn't do it like that now. But being seriously, he's just a fantastic talent, and he lost against the number 1 in the world. That's what you got to remember. I mean, Luke Humphries has won the last 3 big televised events. Yeah. He was getting used to being in the major finals. Maybe that was just enough for him to get over the line. But the game was closer than the score really was, because, as I said, when it went 4-2, that's where he should have really took advantage, when Luke Humphries was just losing a little bit of confidence. But when you're number 1 in the world, you can soon come back, and that's what he did. But this will help him a lot because next year he knows what it's all about. He'll obviously be most probably favourite coming into it next year. But
well, everyone knows who he is. His life will never be the same again, and hopefully he has good people around him who can navigate him through, you know, the world that is media and his celebrity, because that's what he is now. You know, not all heroes wear capes, though, Keith. Right? Some love a kebab and smoke vapes, and that is the new British hero that is Luke Littler, isn't it? Is he an athlete?
Well, an athlete, I mean, that's very hard to say. He's very good at his sport, I'd say that, but I don't think 100 metres will be going to the Olympics anytime, but I just feel that, you know, it's like anything. I mean, when I won the Worlds, I was young. All of a sudden, they couldn't wait to sort of say, well done, the press, and then they jump all over you. That's what it's like. That's what he's got to get used to, you know, because if you have got an image where people don't like, they'll soon tell you. But at the end of the day, I hope his manager, I mean, I know his manager's the same manager as Nathan Aspinall and Chris Dobie, and I think they need to get together with the PDC because they're going to announce the Premier League tomorrow, which is over 16 weeks in all the big arenas. Are they going to put Luke in? I'm not sure because it's going to be a tough thing to do. But, you know, Eric Bridgestow was 17 years old when he won the World Masters on TV. So there's no reason. I mean, he's, to me, on current form, he's one of the top 3 players in the world now.
Yeah, bless him. And honestly, for all the joking aside, genuinely, I wish him all the best. And I really hope that people don't jump on him. I mean, he's 16, for goodness sake, and, you know, private life and all of this stuff, when it comes to Luke Littler, just let it ride, because I think if people do trample all over him, there is the potential to trample all over somebody who could go on and be a precocious talent for decades to come, and we would all miss out on that, right? We would all miss out on that. So, look, Keith, thank you very much for your time this evening. I know you're on a previous show as well, giving us the preview. Now we've got the aftermath, so all credit to you, mate. It's Keith Deller there, who won the 1983 World Darts Championship. Good stuff. Right, OK, coming up, there is an estimated 4 million women in the world. No, is that right? But no, can't be. There's an estimated 4 billion, surely, women in the world. Anyway, but the geniuses at the United Nations have selected a transgender model, a.k.a. biological man, to represent British ladies at a UK champion. Find out what my panel make of that when we return in my press pack. But first, of course, we do have all of tomorrow's front pages hot off the press for you, so you will be bang up to date. And we're going to be talking about launches, dual campaign launches from Reform UK and the Lib Dems. Will the Lib Dems just go into a coalition with Labour? And what does that mean? Patrick Christys tonight on GBNews.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
to find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christys Tonight is the week's biggest show.
Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else.
We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride.
Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse.
It's news, but it's this close to entertainment.
Patrick Christys Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Let's bring you tomorrow's news tonight now in the liveliest paper review you will get anywhere on the telly. The very first front pages have just been delivered for my press pack. Right, we're going with the Metro. Hank's heroes, 94-mile-per-hour havoc, but rescuers pluck women and child from the floods. This is, of course, tales of courage as deadly storm batters Britain. We go to The Guardian. Pressure on PM grows as striking doctors warn of further disruption. Historic 6-day stoppage begins amid predictions the NHS crisis may get worse. Well, I mean, it obviously will, because they're on strike. At least 95 die as 2 blasts hit Iranian city, and a picture story there of Luke Littler sadly coming up short at the Ali Pali. The Eye leads with Trump 2.0 is a threat to UK, warned Britain's top diplomats. I'll read you through the bullet points for this, and we're going to delve into it in more detail with my panel. The government needs urgent contingency plans to protect the UK from massive security risks. Hang on, we've heard all this before. We heard it the first time with Trump, didn't we? 3 of Britain's most experienced diplomats warn of major defence concerns if Trump withdraws US support for Ukraine. Anyway, they prattle on a bit about all of that. So I'm going to go to my panel now. Anyway, we do have, of course, Christine Hamilton, we've got Adam Brooks, and we've got Matthew Larter here with me. The government urgently needs, Christine, the government urgently needs contingency plans to protect the UK from Donald Trump if he's re-elected. Do you buy it?
Well, I am assuming charitably that these 3 are basically referring to Ukraine and what will happen if the US government currently is the biggest contributor to Ukraine, $46.3 billion. We contribute 6.9 by comparison. So if they withdraw their support from Ukraine, which is apparently what Trump said he will do, then it'll be a walkover for Putin, and then what happens? So that, I mean, I kind of worry about that. Totally. But, I mean, Sir Peter Westmacott, who was apparently our British ambassador some years ago, he describes Trump, we know where he's coming from. He's a monster, he's unprincipled, he's misogynistic, fraud, liar, destroyer of constitutions. Right. And that's him quoting, not me. And then one of the others says, where is it?
Well, Adam, you've got some strong views on this as well, haven't you?
Well, so they've got a big problem with Trump, but they haven't got a problem with a silly, senile fool that's in office in America at the moment that hates Britain and puts us down and gets involved in everything, you know, stops us doing what we need to do. Have they not got a problem with him? Of course they haven't, because the guy you just referenced sounds like a real woke Wally.
I don't think it's woke to want NATO to survive.
I do worry about withdrawing support from Ukraine. I really do.
Look, you've got to remember, this is all an agenda now. He's winning in the polls. He's getting more support in the US. So this sort of campaign now to put everything down about Trump is going to start.
Well, I think this is about American politics. This is about Britain's place in the world, and I think it's a real danger. I think they're right. It's an absolute real danger to Britain's
security.
Under
Trump, we had less wars in the world.
Well, that's not because of Trump.
We had less conflict. Of course it was because of Trump. He was the man that got both careers together and made them shake hands.
Well, they shook hands, but they haven't done anything very much since, and there's still massive risk of nuclear war.
What has Joe Biden done? The world has gone into conflict under Joe Biden. Apparently the Americans are the world's police force. Under Joe Biden, the world is falling apart.
No, I don't think it's under Joe Biden the world's falling apart. I think it's when Vladimir Putin decided to invade Russia.
Is it not fair to say, right, that when we've had Joe Biden going over to Ireland, mugging us off big time, Joe Biden cozying up with the European Union, Joe Biden emboldening the Irish to prosecute British soldiers, I mean, I don't really recall the Eye going big on that.
Exactly.
But the threat to British interests is Donald Trump.
Look, loads of Conservatives like Janet Daly, who we see on GB News, it regards Trump's re-election as one of the biggest threats to security. So you don't have to be on the left to think that Trump is a threat to Britain and world security.
What I find so alarming about American politics is that these are the two who seem likely to be the front runners. I mean, there are rumours that they actually will pull Biden at the last minute. They can't pull him at the moment.
I don't see how we can stand
would make him a lame duck. But, I mean, it is terrifying that the greatest country in the West, etc., throws up those...
Well, talking of terrifying things, the Liberal Democrats launched...
segue of the year. There's only the third.
That's why I get paid the medium-sized bucks. They launched their election campaign today in typically cringeworthy fashion. Lib Dem leader Sir Ed Davey launched what he's calling his Tory removal service. That face. As he refused to rule out a coalition with Labour so he can move closer to number 10.
Yeah, I'm here in Guildford in Surrey to launch a Davis Tory removal service across swathes of the United Kingdom. It's the Liberal Democrats that's the powerful vote if you want to get rid of the Conservatives.
Hang on a minute, I've just noticed something here. Can we play that clip again? Because I think someone nicks his van in the background here. Wait for it. If we can bring it up again. Watch him, he's talking here.
Yeah, I'm here in Guildford in Surrey to launch a Davis Tory removal service.
Yeah, I'll have a bit of that.
Across swathes of the United Kingdom. It's the Liberal Democrats
that's
the
his van.
vote if you want to get rid of the...
Fantastic, yeah, I fancy a bit of that. I'm here in Guildford, where under the Liberal Democrats crime would go down to absolutely naff. But, look, he's not ruling out, apparently, a coalition with the Labour Party. Matthew?
Well, look, I mean, I hope that Labour's going to win an outright majority, and like Labour supporters up and down the country, I'll be campaigning for that. But
Would you get into bed with the Liberal Democrats?
Well, I mean, I can think of worse people to get into bed with, like the SNP, who Labour's absolutely clear it wouldn't do a deal with under any circumstances. So what's interesting about the Lib Dems is they're laser-like focused on these seats in the blue ward. They're not interested. We're not hearing Ed Davey say I'm going to be Prime Minister, as we heard from previous Lib Dem leaders. So if the extra seats are needed, could a deal be done? Yes, and it wouldn't be a coalition of chaos. It would be a coalition of sensible progressives.
Well, Adam, are you terrified of a Lib Lab coalition?
Yes, I think it'd be an utter disaster for this country. That is one of the most embarrassing political campaigns that I've seen in many years.
Since their last one.
And now I can't... Now
it's the only way they get attention.
Today I've learned that Ed Davey was the Post Office Minister during the great Post Office scandal that's been dramatised this week, and he refused a meeting with her over the Horizon scandal. For me, that's unforgivable, and he needs to.
Well, he's going to have to answer that. He's going to have a lot of questions asked about that, really, isn't he, in the coming weeks and months. But coming up, actor Andrew Scott has revealed how he held up a performance of Hamlet when he noticed a member of the audience was using a laptop. Was he right to do that? Find out in my Greatest Britain and Union Jackass shortly. But next, why did the woke-ravaged United Nations select a trans woman, a biological man, to represent females as a UK champion when there are 4 billion real women in the world? My panel gets stuck into that and much more of tomorrow's newspapers' front pages in a few minutes.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Yes, it's time now to return to the liveliest pay-per review you will get anywhere on telly. More front pages are about to be delivered hot off the press. I am joined again, of course, by my press pack with author and broadcaster Christine Hamilton. We've got businessman and activist Adam Brooks, former Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser. Now,
we need a badge, a press pack badge. We can all wear them. We're in your press pack, like a, like the Tufty Club.
First rule of press pack, obviously, is speak when spoken to. But there we go. So, I'm only joking. I'm only joking.
Well, watch it, Christys.
I'm only joking. I was in my flow then. I was in my flow, Matthew. So, right, now, look, OK, who do you think should represent British women as the UN's UK champion? Princess Anne, maybe? Or Michelle Dewberry. Yeah, there we go. Or Michelle Dewberry.
Yes.
Well, yes, thank you. Dream on. Because in the latest insult to women everywhere, the controversial transgender model Munro Bergdorf has been appointed as the United Nations representative of British women and girls. Now, if that name sounds familiar, you remember her from this.
These are the sentences that you wrote. I don't have the energy to talk about racial violence of white people anymore. Yes, all white people.
Yes, the uncomfortable truth is that the white race is the most violent and oppressive force of nature on Earth.
Yeah, I mean, look, hey, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but perhaps it's not the best idea to pick someone to represent British women and girls, most of whom, of course, will actually be white. But on top of that, Bergdorf has also been accused of homophobic social media posts in which she branded someone a hairy, barren lesbian. This appointment has caused fury amongst women's rights campaign groups, with at least 17 of them signing a letter opposing the decision. Christine, is that an insult to women?
It's a grotesque insult. It's a slap in the face to real women. If she wants to be appointed to represent transgender women, then that's fine. But to have her representing women and girls in this country, I mean, leaving aside all the things she said on social media, which are pretty horrific and ought to bar her from it, she is not a woman. She is a man who has trans to a woman. She should not be representing real women like me, and she doesn't. I won't have it.
I think she's got a fantastic... I'm assuming she's got a fantastic agent, but, of course, I don't know that for sure.
What you was going to say there. It's a deliberate political decision, and it's a slap in the face to a woman.
I go on about the trans agenda a lot and have done for many years. There is a push to have trans women involved in everything. And, you know, whether it be schools, whether it be adverts, whether it be representing women, who is pushing this? Who is coordinating this agenda? Now, at the end of the day, a biological man can never be a woman. No. I don't care what operation you have or what you say you are, you can never be a woman.
I understand what it is to be a woman.
We have to remember, I think it's something like 90 or 95% of trans women have penises. They are not women.
OK, Matthew, your views on this? Because some people would say, hey, look, it's an inclusive sign of the times.
Oh,
yeah, look, I tell you what I think it's absolutely... I think Christine is absolutely legitimate. For them to be a role model and ambassador, but not the only one. It strikes me one of the things this is about experience of people growing up as girls. So clearly she didn't grow up as a girl, and therefore I think you need a range of voices of which she
I think it's
can be
also,
one.
to be fair, some of the comments that have been made about like white people and just generally.
I mean, the white people comment which we've heard the clip of is pretty difficult to take. Of course, she is also a former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn.
Really?
But
Sorry, hang on a minute. I forgot about that. Yeah. I forgot about that.
She only lasted a month. So,
Never mind.
and she resigned.
Wow. Gosh.
I mean, yes, she has a role to play. He wants to be called she, so I always believe in being polite to transgender people. If they want to be
believe
called
in
she,
facts.
I will call them she. I don't know whether she has or hasn't, and I don't care whether she's got a willy or not, but I'm calling her she.
Okay.
She has every right to represent transgender women, but not women.
Right.
She's not a woman.
Look, I'm just going to park that there because I just want to bring something to the attention of our viewers and listeners. An incident has been unfolding at a cinema in Liverpool tonight where there have been reports of a man brandishing a gun at staff. Police cars, a helicopter and armed cops attended the Showcase Cinema in East Lancashire Road. Outside the Showcase Cinema there we can see a heavy police presence. Liverpool Echo reporter Abigail Nicholson posted on Twitter that a man watching a film with his daughter, who was 14 apparently, and her friend, saw police around the building, were told by a staff member that a man had aimed at her with a shotgun. We're waiting for a statement from Merseyside Police on this incident and understand that uniformed police officers have now left the scene while detectives investigate. So hopefully that scene is now over, and obviously we'll wait for more details, but that was an ongoing incident, is an ongoing incident. All right, well, we are just going to, in quite a remarkable handbrake turn now, I think, reveal today's Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. All right, OK, so, look, let's go in, Christine, with your Greatest Britain.
My Greatest Britain is Alan Bates, not the actor, but the sub-postmaster from North Wales, who is the hero who has fought on behalf of all sub-postmasters and sub-mistresses against this appalling scandal. And he's fought for 20 years, and anyone who hasn't already started to watch the dramatisation really should. It's on another channel, but it's well worth watching. And he has declined. He was offered an MBE, and he has declined it until Paula Venables, who was head of the Post Office during this fiasco, until she returns the honour she's got, because in his view, she doesn't deserve it. So he has declined the honour, and he is absolutely brilliant, upstanding hero.
Just quickly to whiz people through, in case you've been living on the moon with your fingers in your ears, essentially, some posties were wrongfully dismissed and prosecuted.
Went to prison. Some of them went to prison, and it was a computer error.
They were accused of stealing money. The figures didn't add up, and it turned out it was the computer,
and it was a computer error.
I watched the drama the other night. It was quite upsetting to watch. I didn't realise quite how bad it was. And it was shocking.
Well worth watching.
Ed Davey, who I know that you feel very passionately about on this, Adam, says that he was misled at the time as well. You know, his hands are clean on all of this. He spoke to bosses about it, and he wasn't given the full picture. Therefore, crucially, can't be held personally responsible. Adam, who's your Greatest Britain?
Right, my Greatest Britain is our very own Nigel Farage, because for years he's been exposing the immigration lies that this government have been telling the public, and now it's all coming home to roost, and he's still doing it.
All right, good stuff, good stuff.
And mine is an honorary one, which is the Irish actor Andrew Scott, who we saw earlier, who has revealed that whilst playing Hamlet, he had to stop the performance because somebody didn't just get out their phone, they got out a laptop and started to do their emails, rather preventing him doing the to be or not to be soliloquy. So, you know, he's got balls as Andrew Scott.
That is wild, isn't it, to get a laptop out when you're actually watching a show at the theatre. OK, today's winner of the Greatest Britain is Christine's suggestion. Yes, that's right, it is the wonderful Alan Bates. Right, we've just about got time to rattle through this now for Union Jackass. Christine.
Oh, 2 seconds, 2 words. Junior doctors.
Right, OK, all right, Adam.
And the BMA.
My nomination is Dr. Scholar for insulting tweets to the Auschwitz Memorial Museum. If she was a right-wing commentator, she would never work again. OK. But she's going to be given a free pass, we know that.
All right, Matthew.
Mine is Michael Gove and the Housing Department for not spending 2/3 of the £4.2 billion set aside to build houses, despite the very real housing crisis that many millions of people face in this country.
All right, strong suggestions all round, yes again. And today's winner of the Union Jackass is Dr. Scholar. Yes, we had a debate on that earlier. Can I just thank my wonderful panel for a rip-roaring show this evening? I would like to thank all of my guests. I would also like to thank you, the wonderful viewers and listeners. I will see you tomorrow at 9 p.m. Until then, keep fighting the good fight.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, I'm Alex Deakin. This is your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. Tomorrow, for most places, a dry and a bright day. A few scattered showers, but the potential for some very wet weather across the far south. Storm Henk is disappearing away to the east, but this little weather front is going to generate some wet weather across the south tomorrow. Still got low pressure up to the north of Scotland as well. Plenty of showers packing in here this evening. Quite a wet evening across eastern Scotland. But elsewhere, the weather is turning a bit drier. Plenty of showers showers still across northwest England. Of course, any extra rain falling because it's been so wet could cause some further issues. Temperatures mostly holding up a few degrees above freezing. Bright start then across the Midlands, South Wales and indeed the southeast of England too. Elsewhere, quite a bit of cloud, some showers still over northwest England and northern parts of Scotland. But down to the south, we are looking at this next area of rain coming in. Some uncertainty about how quickly it gets in, but parts of Devon and Somerset may well turn wet by lunchtime. And then that rain likely to spread up towards the southeast during the day. Could be quite heavy. And of course, again, because it's falling onto saturated ground, likely to cause some issues. It may be a little bit further north, it may be a little bit further south. For many, though, it stays dry and bright through Thursday with some sunny spells, temperatures a little above average. That rain should scoot away on Friday, then we're left with a few showers, but the weather is turning drier and calmer